Hi, my name is Mason Phillips-Cary, and this is my Module 1, Becoming an Online Teacher. So a little bit about me, I teach at the School District of Lancaster at McCaskey East, and I teach chemistry. I have a lovely partner named Sky, who teaches ceramics at a local studio downtown, and I have three amazing pets. The cat that has black and orange, her name is Aura. The fully black cat is named as Tanj, and the dog's name is Junie, and he is a boxer beagle mix. I got my post back at Millersville, and I come back for my master's. My master's is in assessment, curriculum, and teaching with interactive STEM. And I just love being a teacher in general. When I'm not in the classroom, some of the favorite hobbies that I like to do is read. Being outside, my two favorite activities are kayaking and going hiking. If you know anything about me, I love being a person who goes to local coffee shops and tastes different coffee shops. So if you ever see me downtown, I'm probably at a local coffee shop or one of the nice ones that they have downtown. If I'm not doing any of those activities, I am also probably watching the new Netflix show that just came out because I love binge watching everything that has to do with Netflix. Okay, so now let's get into the Motzkowitz discussion and my experience with being an online teacher. So as a learner, I took several classes online. So in my undergrad, because I was a chemistry major in my undergrad, I took a majority of my minor courses online. My minors were criminal justice and psychology. And the reason for this is because I had several conflicting times with my major courses, and the minor courses would always be at the same time that I would have like OChem or general chem. So I obviously had to figure out how to get my minors courses in there somehow. And so I took those courses online. Well, now my post-bac, I didn't have any of those courses online. But now that I'm in my master's program, all of my courses are online, except for one was a kind of a blended format through virtual, which was my research methods that met weekly, but it met through Zoom than an actual classroom. And we did facilitate those actual real-life discussions. Now, as a teacher, I started student teaching during that COVID year when March happened. And so as soon as that COVID happened, we started to interact with students through modules and weekly modules where they had to complete an activity. After that first year of what I call not really teaching because I was student teaching, my first year of teaching at Mechanicsburg, because I was at Mechanicsburg before moving to McCaskey East, was a hybrid format. So it was 60% online and 40% face-to-face. After I moved from Mechanicsburg to McCaskey East, which is where I student taught as well, we are now currently in a web-enhanced format where students are completing either documents online or they're completing documents face-to-face. Now, to go further into this discussion, we also had to do a self-audit. So things that I do well is I want to praise myself for being very well organized. I like to make sure that my students are interacting with materials through weeks, because I post on their school limb system, Schoology, like weekly folders that they know that they have their assignments due. And I also really make sure I hone into them that there's a constant awareness of deadlines. I post a Google Calendar on Schoology, so that way they know, hey, make sure you look at the calendar for due dates and X, Y, and Z. And there's also that communicative on the bulletin in Schoology, so that way they know. Another thing that I would say is I'm very well-rounded in my content subject area of knowledge. I have modified the curriculum twice now to, deal with the COVID years that have happened over the past couple years that we've gone through COVID. So I'm very well versed in modifying and adapting and adjusting what we have for the curriculum for the chemistry content. And then my dedication and motivation. I love learning our school's limb system. It may be a little confusing because it is Schoology, but knowing how to promote those interactions with students in the limbs makes it even better. And lastly, I have a dire passion to make sure that I'm integrating technology somewhere in my course because we are living in a very technologically advanced society. Now, things that I could do better is communication. Even though I communicate deadlines, I really want to come up with different ways, interactive ways that my students can communicate with each other and even me. Whether it be through digital formats, through Padlets, etc. I really want to come up with unique ways that students can communicate with one another. I also want to delve more into technological assessment materials and really hone in on like how to develop those wide range of technological skills. And lastly is being more flexible when things don't work out as planned. I'm somewhat get frustrated when websites don't work or things don't work correctly for the students because they aren't getting access to the information that they quite need to answer those questions that I've developed for them. Now, if we go into the national standards for online teaching, how does it compare to teaching face to face? Well, it compares very much so. You still need to build a community when you're online. You need to discuss the professional responsibilities that students need to have when they're through an online format. And you're going to know how to assess, instruct, and make sure that students are meeting those learning targets and goals that you set out for them. The only thing that changes is that there's a digital citizenship that students have, which determines how you're going to monitor students and interact with those students online, but also making sure that those students are being authentic to themselves and posting their own information and not just looking on Google or Bing or whatever website that they would have and copying and pasting that information. So I feel like that's the only part where it's different than online. I mean, in face-to-face and in person. So which quality would be hard to have in online teaching? I would say possibly very much so building community. I know with all the online courses that I have taken, professors try to hone in on this building community, but it is very hard in those online formats to make sure that those students are having those real life discussions, that are having that building of sense of community with their class and making sure that there is this sense that everyone is in this together to achieve those common goals. Another struggle that happens with this building of community is that there's no really student-teacher relationship that is forming because of the building community in a virtual format. To piggyback off of that, the Arch and Built article really talks about all the challenges that come on with online teaching. And the biggest challenge that I see is getting to know your students and the students' issues. So first, obviously, is building those relationships. The second is monitoring those self-regulated behaviors that students have. It's an unknowing thing if students aren't turning in work and not really communicating with you online if you don't know their struggles and what's happening in their daily lives, because students are very transparent if they see a person face to face and let them know. If you don't have that community, if you don't have the relationship, you don't know what the student's going through. All you possibly know is that they're not turning in assignments. And I don't know if this happens in anyone's districts or any other students that they have, but I have several students that don't have Wi-Fi access in their home. So they have to complete their online assignments by either going to the public library or to the local Starbucks or any single place that has Wi-Fi, so that way they can do their online assignments that they have for them to do with other classes. So that's another like self-regulated behavior that teachers are so unaware of in an online setting, because the majority of the time students don't state that. And so giving them that opportunity in the online format to like state those personal things that they are dealing with would be 100% like building that community within that class. Excuse me. Another thing that is a really hard challenge is timing. Now, in an online instruction, there's a lot of planning that goes into the online instruction and making sure those lectures are great and awesome when you give them to them. So making online lectures like Nearpod takes a lot of time because you have to record voices. You may have to model how to do calculations. For me, I have to model how to do calculations. And or having them complete the virtual documents and making sure that they're doing it accurately and not just searching up answers. It goes into a lot of planning and making sure that students are actually interacting with either the lecture or the materials that you gave them. And then on top of that, you have to adapt to what the students are learning. So if they're not gathering those concepts and if they're not gathering that information through the virtual format, you then have to reteach it and kind of reformat it so that way the students can interact with it, interact with simulations, or interact with the material in a different way. So those are the challenges that I think that several teachers have when it comes to doing online instruction. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.